Hi guys, this is Vineet, and in this video we will discuss about how you can add additional data files, all the secondary data files and also the log files to a database in SQL Server instance. And before we see how we can add the files and the secondary data files and the log data files in a database, let's go through some of the points. So before even we discuss that, I would like you to hit on the subscribe button to subscribe to my channel, and also hit on the bell icon to get all the updates regarding my future videos. Alright, let's continue. So let's go through some of the points before we see how we can add some files, the secondary data files and the log data files to a database. So there is no possibility we can add or remove the secondary data files or log data files while a backup is running in the background, or backup is getting performed in the background. And also a maximum of 32,767 files can be added to a database, and also the same applies to the file groups as well. In a database, file groups can be defined to group a bunch of files. We will see how we can do that. So by default we have a primary file group already created for a database, so I will show you that in a while. So there are two ways we can add the secondary data files and the log data files to a system, not to a system but to a database. So files can be either added using the GUI mode in SQL Server Management Studio, or we can write a query in transact SQL dialect in SQL Server Management Studio. Now let's go through the demo. So let me take you to the SQL Server. Let me close this query window and let's see. Okay, so the first step you need to do is to connect to a instance of a SQL Server. So I was already connected, so I have disconnected it. So you need to click on the connect button, and here we are specifying the machine name to which we want to connect, and we are not specifying the instance name because we are running the default instance of SQL Server. So let's hit connect. It will connect to the default instance of SQL Server running on my machine, and this is the machine name. And let's expand on databases and right click. Let's take Northwind database, or maybe we can take test database that we had created. So right click on it and go to properties, waiting for properties box to open, and let's expand it. And in this database properties dialog box, you need to click on the files page to get the information on file. So we can see that there are two files defined. One is the primary data file, which is having an MDF extension. There are no secondary data files present here. Secondary data files have extension NDF, N as in Nancy. So we don't have any secondary data files present over here. And apart from a primary data file, we also have a log data file which is having an extension LDF, and sizing parameters are defined for those files. And we were talking about file groups, so right now I can see that the primary data file is defined on the primary file group, which is the default file group for a database. Now if we want to add any additional files, all the secondary data files, we need to click on the add button at the bottom here. Click on the add button and it will populate a row in a grid where we can specify the logical and name of the file along with the sizing details. So in the database file grid, and this is the database file grid, we can enter the logical name for the file. So first one is the logical name column. So let me name this file as testdb1 because of a primary the primary data file has the name test_db, so I am naming this other file as test_db1, and this will be our secondary data file. And Then we need to specify the file type. If we want to define a secondary data file, we should leave it to rows data, and if we want to mention it as log data file, we can mention it as log. We will discuss about file stream data in our other videos. For now, let's take it as rows data. And after we define the file type, we need to specify the file group on which we want to place this secondary data file. So so far we have not created any new file groups, and I will show you while running T-SQL statements how you can create file group. If you want to create a new file group right now, you can hit on this option, new file group, or else you can select primary. For now we are just selecting primary, and we can specify the initial size. So for now I'm taking 8 MB, and we are taking default parameters, and auto code parameter 64 MB with the max size unlimited, and by default it takes the same data path. And we can specify the file name for this secondary data file. So if you don't specify anything, it will automatically take the name. Let's see if it takes. So give me a second. Okay guys, before we hit OK, let's discuss some of the points here. So in the auto growth section, we see this parameter max size, which we can limit to certain MBs, or we can set it to unlimited. If we set it to unlimited, it can occupy the size on the disk until the disk become exhausted, or all the space on the disk get consumed. So this maximum file size or the database size can be determined by the amount of disk space available on the hard drive, and it also depends upon the licensing limits, which is determined by the version of SQL Server that you are using. And let's talk about paths as well. So right now we can see that all of our files, including the primary data file, the secondary data file, and the log data file, all of them are placed on the same location. So by default, the data and the transaction logs are put on the same drive, and part to accommodate a single disk system where we have only a single disk. But this configuration is not optimal for production environments, so we can change the path for the log file, or in other words, we should keep the data file and the log file on separate physical drives. Alright, for now we are fine, and let's hit on the OK buttons to see if it provides us a file name. So in order to check that what file name it has provided, I need to go to properties of this database again and expand the properties box, go to the file section. So the name which it has taken is test_db1.ndf. ndf is the extension for the secondary data files. So we are done with the way where we can create additional files or log files using the graphical way in SQL Server Management Studio. And now let's see the way where we can use the transact SQL or a query to add data or add secondary data files or the log files to our database. And the same steps are applicable. We need to connect to the instance of the database. We are already done with that step, and on the toolbar we need to hit on new query to open up a new query window. And let me write some code to create additional data file, and this time we will create a test_db2 file. Okay, so let's write up a query. You may also write query along with me if you want to practice it. So our first statement should be we are adding a file to a database. So in other words, we are altering a database. So first statement should be alter database, and the name of the database we are altering, so we are altering testdb, And if you want, at this point in time, you can if you want, you can add file groups. In our graphical way, we had not added the file groups, but for now, let's put the add file group statement, and let's mention it as test file group 1, and we are putting the newly created files on another file group. So let's terminate the statement with semicolon and hit on go. And so these three statements are a batch of statement. Basically, these two statements are a batch of statement where we can altering our database and adding a file group. We are executing this batch in one go, so we are putting go statement, and after that we are writing another batch of query statements. So again, we are altering the database. In the first alteration, we have just added the file group, which is test fg1, and we are again altering the database, which is testdb, and now we want to add the file. So we will specify the statement add file, and we start the bracket, we close the bracket, and within these brackets we will write some statements to specify the properties of the file that we are defining. So let's take the name, which is the logical name of the file. We are mentioning it as testdb2 because earlier I had created test underscore db1 as the logical file name, and let's specify the file name for it. So for that file name, we need to specify the exact path where we want to, along with the file name, where we want to place this file. So in order to get the path, I'm going back there in the properties window for testdb. I will copy the path from there because I want to place the file on the same path. So this is the path where we want to place the file. So within single quotes, you can somehow it is not getting copied. Let me try again. So let's see if it allows me to copy the path this time. No, it is not allowing me. Let me see how I can do that. Give me some time. So guys, I've manually copied the path by manually browsing to that location through Windows Explorer or the File Explorer. So I've pasted the path, and underneath this path we can specify the file name with the NDF extension, which is the extension for a secondary file. So let me name it like that. So I'm mentioning this file name as test underscore db2 dot ndf. So this is the name of my physical file. Now let's specify the other parameters as well. So other parameter should be the size. So size, I'm taking it as 5 MB, and the max size I am taking it as, let's take it 100 MB, and we can we should not put space in between, and MB should come together with the quantity we have mentioned for the space, or the number we have mentioned for the space. And let's specify the file growth parameter. So we want to increment the files in the increment of 5 MB. So yeah, we are done with defining parameters for the secondary data file and test underscore db2, and this is the first parameter defined for altered database. We have added the file, and if you want to add any additional files, you can follow the same procedure. You can mention any number of files separated by comma. You can again copy the same stuff and change the file name over here. You can let's create another secondary file db3 and let's rename it to db3. So in this way you can add any number of additional files, and I'm mentioning the same parameters, except I've changed the logical name and the physical file name. And once you're done with defining the files, then the statement comes like this: you are adding a file and these are the files. Then we need to specify the file group to which we want to add these files. So to file group should be the statement, and above we have created file group 1, so I'm placing these files on test file group 1, which we had created above over here. Once these statements get executed, our file group with the name test fg1 will get created, and later on in another batch of statements we are using this file group to place two of our other files in this particular file group. The other file group we have is primary, which is the default file group. Earlier the files which were created for testdb were placed on the primary file group. The two which we are creating right now will get placed on test file group 1. And after we are done, we need to put a semicolon to terminate the statement, and to execute this batch, let's put a go statement. Now we can hit the F5 key, or you can alternatively click on the execute button to execute this query. Let me execute it. So yeah, we got the message file completed successfully. So ideally these two files should be added, and a file group should also be added, and these two files should be showing under test file group 1. So let's close this, and I don't want to save it, and let's check what we have done in the properties of this particular database. Those two newly added files should be added over here along with the file group which we have created. So if we go to file group, we can see that our new file group has come here, which is test file group 1, and it has the two files because we have defined two files on this test fg1 file group. And this is still not the default file group, and the default file group is the primary file group. Now let me take you to the file section on the left. Here we can see we had 3 files present earlier. Now we have 5 files. So what all files we have added through query: the test underscore db2 and test underscore db3. Both of them are created on test file group 1 along with the sizing parameters that we have defined, and they are created on the same path, and they are having ndf extension because these are additional data files. So let's hit on cancel and see if anything else is remaining. Let's go back to notes. So guys, I think we are done with this video. I've shown you how you can add files using the GUI mode in SQL Server Management Studio, and how you can add additional data files using Transact SQL using the query language in SQL Server Management Studio. And I thank you for your time, and please like this video and subscribe to my channel and hit on the bell icon to get all the updates regarding my future videos. And also please share this video with your friends so that they can also enhance their knowledge. Once again, I thank you for your time, and you have a wonderful day ahead.